Okay, we are on page 122. The assertions of the fruits of the parts. We are done with the objects of the path, and we are done with the objects to be abandoned by the path. And now the third one, the assertions of the fruits of the paths. So in short, it is pointing to the result. What kind of result one is going to achieve through meditating on these different paths. You got it? Page 122. The proponents of sutra assert that there is no fall destroyer who falls from abandonment. So now look, it looks like, this school is not explaining in great detail about, what are the five paths, how to get there, and so forth. So it's all because those things which are already explained in Vaibhashika school of thought, so these you have to take it here as well. Take it here, and wherever I mentioned last time that this is a unique presentation of Vaibhashika, so then this is a different issue, which means that this is something so unique and this is something explicitly for Vaibhashika school. Otherwise, rest we have to take it to Sautrantika schools and Chittamatra and Madhyamika school. So now look, the proponent directly explains this point. The proponents of sutra assert that there is no fall destroyer who falls from abandonment. Falls from abandonment here referring to relapsing back to the falls. Say, for example, when we get sick and then we get cured, but again we can go back to the same sickness, right? So we can relapse our sickness. So likewise, according to Vaibhashika, after abandoning the afflictive obscurations, again there's a tendency, which means that you have already achieved arahatship, you have become arahat, but then there's a possibility that you can go back, you can relapse those afflictive emotions again, and thereby you will lose your quality of arahatship, right? So this is according to Vaibhashika. But this, I think, although this is not possible, but I think it makes some sense. This is also quite important to, just keep in mind, as at one corner of your mind, just keep that. Because I think the way they explained is quite convincing. So what they were saying is that, say, you have already abandoned all afflictions, and now you are arahat, right? And then at one point, if you are not careful for any reason, again, those bad qualities of not sentient beings, were not exactly ordinary beings, but the afflictions can again come back in you, which means that you drop down from being arahat, right? Why this is important is that particularly for us, I don't know, whether it is really relevant to the real life arahats, but to us it's really very, helpful and relevant, because what we tend to do is that, at one point, because of, for whatever reason, maybe because of your encounter with teachings of your teachers, or because of your, some reasons like sickness or having heard of someone else getting passed away and so forth, then there is a kind of urge from within yourself, towards the practice. You become so strong in your practice, so dedicated, and the practice also going so well, and then you can see, the negative emotions calming down, and also I don't know whether a genuine experience of emptiness, still the points as explicated in the four teachings of the Buddha, all composite things are impermanent, all contaminated things are of suffering nature, and everything is of the nature of emptiness and selflessness, and transcending sorrow as ultimate virtue and peace, reflecting all these points, gaining some kind of understanding, So thereby you start seeing the whole picture of the Buddhism, and then you see how trivial, how senseless, the ordinary beings, they are so trapped in samsara, and you start seeing the value, you start seeing the whole thing. Say, the small kids, they simply see just a few days, today, tomorrow, and a few days, not beyond. So because of which they don't like to go to school. Whereas the parents, they see many, many years after that, because of which they, all the parents, the kind of the love the parents have towards the child far excels the kind of the love the child has towards himself or herself. Because of which, the parents, they are really kind of pushing them hard to go to school, right? So why? Because they see the benefit of going to school after 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And the small kids, they don't see that benefit, because of which they are so narrow-minded. They see just the immediate circle and not beyond. So likewise, so say for some reasons you practice so well, and then you start seeing the entire complete picture of Buddhism, the way the Buddha Shakyamuni really renounced the world, a great prince, not just a prince, but also someone who is highly knowledgeable from every respect, and yet renounce the entire world, seeing something deeper in it. So likewise, at one point you may become like that. And then if you're not careful, the point that I'm going to make here, I'm not just telling you, I'm also telling myself, any one of us, if you're not being careful, then there's a tendency that we can fall back to the bad habits, So by, now the reason, what could be the reason of reasons for us for the potential falling back? So here, as for these arahats who fall back into the original, with the afflictions, is number one, sickness, which means that the arahats physically, their physical body is as ordinary as the ordinary beings. So which means that it is prone to sickness and these things. So if the arahat becomes so sick and couldn't meditate, then his qualities developed, mental concentration and these things developed, can become deteriorated. Because say for example, an athlete, someone who is like who jumps, I think, say 7 feet, right? Who can jump 7 feet? I don't know. What is the world record? Anyone? Okay, say 7 feet. So, do you think that this person, without practicing, training, in this, do you think that he can jump the same height after 2 years, after 1 year? Why not? The body, the flexibility of the body will be lost, right? So likewise, there must be constant training. Similarly, in the practice of dharma, in the practice of training one's mind, it also involves, it's a mental athletic. It needs constancy. So even after you achieve nirvana, if you remain sick and if you are unable to continue this practice, then you can lose the quality of meditative concentration. And because of which, the subtle, it will leave rooms for subtle afflictions to enter into you. And as such, your quality of arahatship is lost, number one. And number two, so usually this is the reason for the arahats, number one. Number two, environment. environment within which you reside. But I don't know whether this is applicable to the arahats. An environment where you find you find people simply engrossed in this life's business, in this life's, work, simply to earn their bread, talking about money all the time, and the televisions, every time it's money, about money, oh, therefore, such things, so we have come up with this product, and it's only about this money, it has such and such benefit, always money, money, money what? Can you accumulate enormous amount of money and take it to your next life? When it comes to the issue of money, if it is to do with the community, it's a different issue. For example, Sravasti Abbey, this is a different issue. Because you are working here, say for example, you're the one who is working on the financial situation of Sravasti Abbey. So it's not that, I'm doing that just for this person for myself in this life, just for this life. You're not doing for that. You're doing for this generation, next generation, 100 years, 1,000 years. So this means that it's a very different issue. But whereas when it comes to self, just one's personal thing, then it is just for this life, right? This means that you forget, you create a boundary, this life, and then, the end of this life, and then finished. Then you don't see beyond. So there's a boundary there, right? Which means that your whole life is simply wasted that way. And then if you are caught up in such an environment where people are simply, so busy with no time for one's practice, for studying and these things, then your mind as well will be influenced, badly influenced by this environment. So, again, as I said earlier, whether it is applicable or not for the arahats, but for sure this is applicable for us. So if you are trapped in such an environment, then we really need to be careful in the sense that the best thing would be, instead of pushing yourself to be in such situation, always try to run away from such situations. This is the thing, right? Okay. And whereas, so it is for this reason that it is said, those at the time of the Buddha who can, observe the monastic rules, all the complete, in completion, the complete monastic rules, so purely, not transgressing, even a subtle one, even a small one, So what kind of merit the person would accumulate? Enormous, right? But then it says that nowadays, if you can observe even a single, a commitment, so purely, just let alone observing all, just even a single commitment so purely in this life, the merit that you're going to accumulate would be far more than what those beings accumulate out of observing the complete ethical commitments. Why? It is because in those days, environment is so good. Wherever you go, you see people, oh, this is arahat, that is, the person who realized emptiness directly yesterday. Like that. So wherever you go, we have ambles of, examples of such great beings. So therefore, you don't see, it's not that you don't see at all, but there are so many people around who are so good and well advanced in their paths, because of which you also feel like doing it. It is so inspiring, it is so inspiring. And then when you do it, everybody simply admires you. Everybody simply, kind of directs you in this direction. Everybody will simply come and aid to help you in this direction, right? So it is so easy for you to observe these ethical disciplines and practice the Dharma. It's so easy. But nowadays, it's so challenging, Say, if a young person, if a young person were a boy or a girl, say like 16, 17, 18 years old, and if you're about to become a monk or nun, and then somehow if you come across lots of people who are totally naive about all these practices and these things, simply talking about money all the time, job, money like that, then they will be so startled to see you, at such a young age, 16, 17, 18 years old, and then becoming a monk or nun, renouncing, then it's like they would totally look at you, they would look at you with a great kind of, great sense of, cannot really imagine, So they might take you as insane, right? Okay, so this means, look, when the other people look at you with such an attitude or with such an kind of feeling, then what would be your response? What would be your, psychological effect that would be there, felt in you? So naturally, you will all as well feel a little bit withdrawn from this practice. So this is the challenge. And then when you see people, the so-called successful in money and jobs and so forth, then if you're in such an environment all the time, again, you also feel like doing that. If you do that, you have to sacrifice something. What is that? Your practice, right? So then you might give preference to sacrificing this practice and delving into this old mundane, useless, in true sense useless, yes, appearingly so attractive, so nice, success in these things. If you really go there, it's just, getting trapped into the life of busyness, the life of competition, the life of, with nothing to really point to as something so a source of great fulfillment. Nothing. In the end, you have nothing really in your hand, right? And another thing that we need to keep in mind is that in terms, so actually what we are seeking, say we here in Sravasti, and the great practitioners who spent, the years and years in solitary retreat, and those people in the plains, in the big cities, just chasing after works like that, being chased by the works. So if you compare, or first if you try to look for the commonality among these, whether someone is a great practitioner like Jisumilarepa, or like us in Sravasti, or someone simply thinking of, what to, what better work to get, what better job, like that, there is one thing in common, that is desire for happiness. The basic urge that I want happiness. And those people, who simply go after works and jobs, they think that by getting a better job would make him more happy. And those members in Sravasti, thinks that, oh no, just simply getting caught up there would be just useless. Either you simply dedicate whole your life in the practice, these things, or at least spend some time here, every now and then come here, spending time would give me somewhat of meaning. One. And another person high up in the mountain, solitary retreats, for years and years. Even nowadays we have wonderful examples in India, spending like 30, 40 years in solitary retreat. And not just simply remaining like, simply reciting Om Mani Padme Hum and spending like that. It's not like that. Real meditation, on bodhicitta, emptiness, renunciation, impermanence, and the tantric practices. So there are really a great number of examples, even nowadays, right? So why do they do that? Again, for the same reason. They think that, oh, look, the sense of urgency, the urgency is so great, right? I've such a short life this time, and the next life, next, oh, it's just so long. The journey is so long, and where I'm right now is so short a lifespan. So I must make the best use of this.
And how to use this is make sure that I get all 24 hours in my hand. Right? So how to do that? So that is, cut down all the other times, time to go for shopping, time to go for casual talks, all this, cut down all these things, and then you really, I don't know whether 24, at least you'll get some 14 hours like that, because you need time for sleep, right? And in the case of the practitioners, great practitioners, they might sleep for about sometimes 3 hours, 4 hours. In some cases, not really lying down, simply remaining, just sit up, and then doing some kind of mantras and these things, and then maybe dozing off a little bit. And again, as soon as you wake up, you start reciting mantras, reflect on the 4 seals of the Buddha's teaching, like that. So they think that it is through this that I can make the best use of this life. For what? For my own happiness and for all others' happiness, right? Okay, so we see that this is how, in short, I don't expect all of us, each of one of us becoming like just Milarepa very soon. I don't expect that. But still, within the limits of our own, potentials, we are trying to make the best use of our time. This in itself is great, right? So, if you really, at least if your mind is too inclined towards using this life as meaningful as possible, then what should we do? What is the best way, the trick or the secret? One of the secrets is to always abide, to remain in a place which is conducive for Dharma practice. Don't think that you are smart enough to practice your Dharma so well, even in the midst of, New York City, right? So this is impossible. Okay, so whereas when you reach the part of seeing, or advanced part of preparation, then maybe we can carry on with our practices while you are there in the midst of a chaotic city, but at least not now, right? So now, presently, the secret is to try to go in a place which is conducive to your practice, and Sravasti Abbey is one of the ideal places. Okay, so this is about, to be careful about our practice, to make sure that our practice keeps on increasing or, getting better rather than relapsing to our bad habits of afflictions. Next. Okay, the proponents of sutra, again, the proponents of sutra assert that there is no foe destroyer who falls from abandonment of all afflictions or from realization of the subtle personal selflessness. So according to Vaibhashika, the arahats can fall back and can have the nirvana lost, because of the inability to continue with their practice, either for the reasons of getting sick, or for some other reasons like becoming so busy. So whatever is the case, according to the sutra system and Chittamatra and other schools, once you achieve nirvana, that's it. Then it will not, relapse to afflictions. So here it says, there is no foe destroyer, which means the arhats, who falls from abandonment of all afflictions. Once you abandon all afflictions, that's it. You'll not have afflictions again. Or from realization of the subtle personal selflessness. Say, when you reach the level of arhatship, the kind of the... Now look, in terms of so my main point here, of course, there are many other related things in the form of experiments we can do to convince ourselves how, how everything in terms of the characteristics, not the object, the basis, in terms of the characteristics, They are simply our own mental creation, you know. So now look, there are two levels of experiences. There are two levels of experience. I would call it one, intellectual. Number two, deep experiential level. Right? Say it's winter. It's winter. And you have to go out to work here and there, right? And you don't have proper clothes to put on. So this means that you will suffer from, this extreme cold. Now imagine, right? There are three containers, and in the first container, a water with 0 degree centigrade in temperature. Second one, 20 degrees centigrade, and third one, 30 degrees centigrade, or 34 degrees centigrade, right? So, are we doing the experiment now? No, we are doing the theory part. We are not doing the experiment, but I'm trying to explain the experiment theoretically, right? So, if I ask you, putting your hand in the first container, would it be so pleasing, so pleasant? No, it's chilly cold, extremely cold. Then you take this hand out and put in this second. What would it be like? It's so warm, so warm, right? So warm. Now you take it out and put it in the third. It's also good. Now you take from the third and put it in second. What would be? Cold. Immediately you want to take it out, right? So when I asked you this, you responded to me the way I expected, the way it should be. But okay, so this means that you have, you know this fact. And if somebody comes and tries to say the opposite of what you said, I don't think anyone can really convince you of the opposite of what you said, right? This is one level of understanding. I don't know what that is, whether that is the deep experiential understanding, experience, or the intellectual, I don't know. So anyway, this is one level of understanding, which, the understanding which cannot be wavered by anyone else, However, expressive, however logical the other person might be, but your standpoint on this, in this respect, will not be wavered, which means that your standpoint is really very firm and very strong conviction. Now let's see what kind of understanding this is. So to really understand which level of the understanding this is, you have to do the experiment. Right? First what you do is that let it be in the month of what? In the month of February, I think, where snow falls. And then you go out, particularly the second day of the snowfall, and particularly in the mornings or in the, nights, you go out and remain there for about, say, 10, 15 minutes. And then, be prepared with those 3 cans. And then, put it, your left hand, right hand there. In the first, it's really freezing cold. And put in the second, it's so pleasant sensation is there. You simply want to, so how is it? Is it good? You'll say, it's perfect. I don't want to take it out anymore. Okay, now you put it in the third. Even better, And the same thing, the same hand, you put in the second can, which you said that I'm not going to take it out. You put it in the second hand. Then immediately you'll take it out. It's what? What has happened to this can? It's so cold, Okay. Now, so there you will get an experience. That is a real, genuine experience from within, right? And even more striking is, okay, what you do is that you put your hand in the first and the second hand in the third, simultaneously. What will you feel? Oh, freezing cold here, it's so pleasant here, And then keep it like this for about, say, 2-3 minutes. Say, till you can bear. And then, when it becomes quite unbearable, then take it out and put it in the second can. This freezing cold, hand in a second. It's so nice. Now both are so nice, right? Take it out and put the right hand in the second. It's so cold. One hand says that it's so, so pleasing. The other hand says it's so cold. Which is right, which is wrong? It's the same body, it's the same person, So then you will see how deceptive, even within yourself. The same person, the same object, the same person, and one part of it says that it's so cold, please don't insert a hand there. And the other says that, oh, please insert it, it's so nice, So look, so this will give you a very clear picture as to how, the warmth and cold, attractive, unattractive, and appreciation of a particular house and not feeling happy about a particular house. Everything is how, we create by our mind. Okay, so, try to do this. Try to do this, Try to do this. And then, when you gain experience, and that experience is very different from the kind of experience you have right now. So from that respect, the kind of experience or the understanding that you have now is intellectual. Intellectual, whereas the second one is the deep experiential understanding, right? So now, when you get it, then on the basis of that, we need to, give more thought to it and then start meditating, right? So that would be a perfect the starter for meditation, right? Okay. Because, our responses, which makes us happy, which makes us sad, fearful, they're all on the basis of our responses to the characteristics of the external objects. In true sense, these characteristics, they are simply created by our own mind, right? And yet, we responded, overly excited way or overly depressed way because of our inability to understand that these characteristics to which you are responding, are your mental creation, right? Okay. Now, one warning, that is, oh, now look, this is the experiment that I'm going to do, and after doing this experiment, now I've come to know that all characteristics, they're all mental creation. And then don't go to the extreme of jumping into the fire like that, saying that this is, mental creation. And don't go to the extreme that you simply remain in the outside, the snow throughout the night. Don't do that. This is extreme, Our mind, in fact, all these characteristics, in terms of your making the conclusion that all characteristics are simply created by one's mind, this is true. By no means this can be, disproved by anyone. However, don't go to the extreme of that, right? Then you might have a kind of, qualm or question. Then how can you reconcile these two? While on the one hand you said that everything is, your belief, in your new conviction, that everything, all characteristics, I'm not talking about the basic objects, the characteristics, they are simply mentally created. But at the same time, you're saying that don't go to the extreme of jumping into the fire, thinking that the hotness of the fire is also what I imputed, you know, and the cold that you feel all the night through in the winter, this is also my mental creation, you know. I said that, don't do that. So how do you reconcile these two ideas? You know, on the one hand, I'm giving you this warning to be very realistic. On the other hand, I still stick myself to this, you know, statement that all characteristics are one's own mental creation. So how do you reconcile these two? So look, again, you know, there is quite a sour pineapple, and there are very sweet other fruits, right? So some people, you know, and you're asked to eat all these. Don't leave even a small bit. This is, you know, your work. So you know, start from very likely. So of course, you know, there are different kinds of people. Some people, they start by eating the sweet ones, and others start eating by starting with the sour ones, right? Okay, you start with the sour one. Yeah, of course it's sour, but it's not that unbearable, right? And then you eat the sweet one. It's really sweet, right? Whereas the other one, oh, it's sour. I want to start from the sweet one. You eat the sweet one, and then you start the sour. It's terribly sour, you know. It's terribly sour. So of course, this is, you know, a relativistic phenomena, you know, a relativistic. And your mind, you know, on the basis of this reality of the relativity, right, on the basis of this reality, right, your mind responds to it, you know. And then, so this response is accompanied by a feeling of, you know, a feeling of pleasantness and feeling of unbearableness, right? Okay, so actually, if you have started from the sour one first, then it's not a problem, because, you know, the sour one, if you eat it by itself, then it's not that unbearable. But if you have the taste of the sweet one first, then if you taste the sour one, it's really unbearable. And then, of course, this is also mentally created, but it is so unbearable that you cannot really eat it, you know. And then, even if, however much you may say that, oh, this is my own mental creation, had I eaten the sour one first, I'm not going to suffer this, you know. While, you know, trying to recall yourself as to how this is your own mental creation, but if you eat it, it's really unbearably sour. This is a fact. This is how our mind responds to it. This is what you have created, you know. It's you who created this terribly sour, because you started from the sweet one, you know. So there is no absolute sour, you know. Unbearable sour is also created by oneself, you know, by starting something else from the sweet, right? So if it's 100% sour from itself, then whether you start from the sweet or from the sour, it makes no difference, you know. The unbearableness should be there in both cases, but this is not the case, right? So what I mean to say is that the polar bears, they can withstand those, you know, the Arctic cold, and they enjoy it. And if you bring them here, oh, they will suffer the heat, you know. So we see that our mind, you know, our mind can create ourselves in a situation whereby we can withstand such a cold. But the kind of mind that we have now is not prepared. So therefore, don't jump to that extreme, right? Thinking that even, you know, the polar bear here, he can create, you know, the I see things as so pleasant a place to sit on. So why not I can create? I'm a human being, you know. If the animal can create it, why not me? And if you go there, oh, these are all pleasant places to sit, you sit there, you will suffer, right? So be realistic. Be realistic. Yeah. So, however, you know, through this training, you know, it's actually, look, it is our mind which says, oh, this is pleasant, this is not pleasant, you know. Everything is so relativistic. And it is our mind, you know, who responds to the objects in relation to something else. Finally, it is our mind. So, you know, so if we train ourselves in this reality, you know, by trying to deepen our experience of this reality, how everything is so relativistic, existing simply by means of in a relational way, you know, not something 100% from the object side, then you try to, you know, reflect on it more and more and more. Then at one point, you'll really reach a level whereby, you know, whereby when upon encountering with the physical things, they don't really make any difference to you, you know. Say, a little bit cold, oh, it's fine, it's cold, you know, but mental kind of a response of unbearableness and these things, or, you know, overwhelmingly attracted to a particular object, these will all simply cancel out, you know. And yet, your sense of discrimination, the wisdom, will not be cancelled. You will not become as though like, you know, someone who is in a coma. Not like that. Don't worry about it, you know. So what will happen because of this realization? What will happen? What will cancel out is an obsession to the physical objects, and is a sense of, you know, dissatisfaction, sense of running away from the physical objects. So these will be cancelled out, right? And then what will be maintained, not only maintained, what will be nurtured is the ability to discriminate what is virtuous and what is unvirtuous, how to benefit others, you know, like that. And your courage, your wisdom, these will be enhanced, while the negative attitudes, negative thoughts, they will be undermined by this realization, right? So right now we are trying to, through this reflection, whatever you encounter with, say you're so thirsty, and then you have you know, chilled water or cold juice or whatever, and then you drink it, it's so pleasing, and then you tell yourself, you know, oh, this is not 100%, you know, pleasant from its own side. This is how my mind is creating, you know. Then you tell yourself, after you are quite okay, again you try to drink the second mug, third mug, fourth mug, 10th mug, what will happen? It's so painful, you know. Instead of enjoying, you will find it so difficult. So then tell yourself, look, this is the reality, you know. The reality is not there. The absence of the reality of the goodness from itself is known as the reality of this. The absence of the reality of goodness or badness from its own side is what is known as the reality of this particular object. Right? Say how rich you are. I'm wondering how rich you are. And then, you know, if you ask this question to me, then I might say that, oh, the poverty is my richness. Which means that I'm rich and poor, being poor. I'm rich and being poor means that, you know, my degree of richness is nothing. I have nothing to show that I'm rich, right? So this is my degree of richness. So similarly, the reality of this object is the absence of the reality, right? Absence of the reality of goodness is the reality of this object. So look, once you discover this, so actually, practice need not necessarily be, you know, simply going in your house, or, you know, in a particular hall, then sitting upright like this. This is really very important to do. You know, the daily allocating a specific time for meditation. This is really very necessary. But at the same time, you know, the meditations and the practices can be carried on even during your casual activities, such as drinking water or eating food and these things, you know. When you feel, especially when there is a kind of flow of emotions, like excitement or sadness, these things, actually these are the times, you know, these are the times which can really nurture and shape your meditation. This is really a wonderful opportunity, right? Okay, so now look, now going back to our main discussion, in terms of how the characteristics of the objects are not something established 100% from its own side, rather mental imputation is to some extent understandable, even without having been introduced to philosophy. But then this is the issue. Look, the table. So as I said earlier, because of my not having a table for the last 4 or 5 years, now when I get one, then being able to, things getting so comfortable for me. You can put your mark on it, or you can put your prayer books on it, and then you can sit without holding the prayer books and do your meditations. Your mind not distracted towards it, or thanks to this table, So we see that I see the good qualities of it. But then what? I have another table. What if I have another table which is bigger than this, and where, say, this cup, and I simply push it a little bit, and then it slides down and spills again, whereas another table which will have it just remain fixed there, and the books also remain fixed there, and then most spacious. So then, when you see that, then the old one, oh, I'd rather have it, go away. So look, so now I start seeing this in the light of what? Something negative, right? So this, in terms of the characteristics, is fine. To some extent, we can say that it is our own mental creation. Then the question is, what about the basis of the characteristics? The table itself, is this mental creation or not? So this is an issue, right? So when reflecting on, some of the teachers, they introduce emptiness on the basis of the characteristics. So this is a good idea of introducing to emptiness, but this should not be taken as the ultimate understanding of emptiness, If this introduction of emptiness on the basis of the characteristics, the absence of true nature from the characteristic side, to see if that is the true understanding of emptiness, simply try to shift your meditation, or shift your object of meditation from the characteristics to the basis of the characteristics. And if it works well, then this is good enough of your meditation, right? So then the question is, oh, I know the table, the characteristics, whether it is good or bad or big or small, these things, it is, my mental creation is fine, I know that. But what about the table itself? How do you know that the table is mentally imputed? This is a question. Anyone? Because I didn't ask you, to share with me as to how the characteristics of the table is mentally imputed, because you have lots to say about it. So for that, I didn't ask you a question. Now my question is, what about the table? How do you know that? How can you say, at least on the intellectual level, that the table is mentally imputed? Whether from mindfulness school or from the Prasanga school or whatever. Anyone? Once when I was I almost finished my studies in a monastic institution. Then many of the evenings, after our formal debates, then the younger ones, means those in their 7th year, 10th year of their studies, they come to my room and for further discussions, just private discussions. Then there was one who said that, who has already studied the Chittamatra school and Sautrantika school and these things. So in my room, the kind of the flow of the discussion is not on the merely intellectual one, it's more on the experiential level, So that was the kind of policy, not exactly a set policy, but the discussion was more casual and more personal, experience. it's not that I was sharing, but simply sharing among ourselves, mutual sharing. And then one of them said, oh, mindfulness school's view is totally not acceptable, it's not acceptable. So this means that he was trying to really speak from his heart, experiential level. On the intellectual level, of course, we can say lots and lots of things. But then, what you really feel, this is the issue. So he said that, oh no, mindfulness school is not acceptable. Because even if you say, oh, these characteristics, say, oh, this table is bad, good, oh, I know these are mental created. But then what about that very object, the table? The monk asked that to me. So then, so if you have such a standpoint to speak from your heart, what you feel, what you really feel, then there's a hope that you will get somewhere into the philosophy, into the profound views of the different schools. Whereas if you simply speak all the time from the point of view of the different schools, rather than from your own personal experience, then you will never get anywhere. This is the problem, right? So then he asked me that. Now look, I want your help. What would be your response? What about the table itself? How do you know that this table is mere mind?
Is mere mind?
Yeah. Is or isn't? Look, instead of Krishna helping me, helping the other monk.
Someone who's never known a table could walk in and not know that's a table.
But then he will say that there's something over there.
Yeah,
I can use it for, I can use it for putting my books. Oh, oh, Kevin, would you mind helping me with something? Okay, fine, please carry on with your work, and I'll put it there. I don't know what that is. I don't know whether this is called giant, whether this is called demon, or whether this is called, Buddha. I don't know, but this is useful that I put that. This means that, he doesn't know the label, but he does know that something is there. So this is what is known as, he knows the function of this object, to lift objects, which is the definition of the table. Anyway, Captain, thank you for your attempt. Thank you for supporting me.
How do they explain the way cause and effect exists in this course? Seems very interesting. How would they explain?
Look, she is now, instead of helping me, she's, arguing with me.
You're on his side first. No, if they do not say that there's some basic
Very intelligent question, very intelligent. Yeah. Very intelligent question. Okay, so now look. Should we delve in it right now or sometimes later?
Sometimes later.
Okay, I think that's better.
I'm a timekeeper, I'm afraid.
Oh, yeah. But I don't know how accurate this clock is.
It's relative.
So, according to mine, it's just 3:30 sharp.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so whatever the case, your question is really, what is needed here. The how can one account for the cause-effect relationship according to the school? Very good question.
My question is, Geshe, is Christina coming from an experiential? Because when you said experiential, that took me out of the intellectual reasoning and thinking of how you've been talking.
But there's also some truth in what they say, even at the experiential level, so it's not just intellectual level.
Well, that's what I was asking is the question, because I would have gone up here and knocked on it and smelled it and touched it and felt it. For me, it's so much to know if the table is coming from my sense consciousnesses that it would identify.
So this means that it's external.
Yeah.
It's external, it's not mind.
Well, from my experience, a lot of it is with my sense consciousnesses identifying an object.
No, the question is, first, are you in line with the standpoint that this table is mental extension, or if this is external? The first question, right? So if you say external, then someone has to be there to prove that this is not external. Whereas if you say that, oh, it is, although we may not understand it fully, but still it is mentally created, at least you have to be able to convince it.
If you were mentally creative, if you look at the table, okay, now you're mentally creative, you go outside,
Yeah, yeah.
create it again.
It disappears.
Puts it outside in the
No, and you're
backyard.
mentally creative again.
What do you mean? It disappears.
I'm just trying to figure out what Christine is saying. If it is all mental creation, that table goes inside my mind and goes everywhere I want. So I could put that table out in the meadow, I could put it in a car, I could
Yeah.
put it on the roof of the house.
Yeah, yeah. So no, her question is, leave the table inside, don't take it with you. You go outside, and what will happen to the table? Will it disappear?
For me, no.
Okay. So because, the mind which imputes it is no more there. So it is inseparable from the mind which imputes it. Right?
That is what Chittamatra is saying. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so this is what you are with Chittamatra or you are against Chittamatra?
Well, I'm just coming from my experiences that I don't see from my experience that my perception of that table is totally a creation of my mind.
So what is your experience? Your experience is in line with the externality of the table or the mindness of the table?
Mostly from the table side. That there is
Okay,
something
so
out there
this
that-
means you are on the same line, two of you. There is no need for you to argue.
Okay.
Okay, we stop here. So, okay, we stop here.